Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this picture. The choice of viewpoint, or where you put the camera, can have a large influence on the final image. This image was captured with a wide-angle lens, allowing a closer, more inclusive viewpoint. And in this video I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. Okay, so this is what I've got set up so far. I've placed a few items on this tabletop, which I've also placed on top of this other bigger table. Now I've set all these things like this on purpose, so that it gives me some leading lines in the composition. Now I've also placed a tripod at the front here, and this will be my camera position. Okay, so for the camera I'm using this medium format camera, so let me just pop that on the top of the tripod here. Now this camera has an 80mm standard lens on the front of it at the moment. So in full format terms you'll get a similar field of view from something like a 50mm lens. Okay, so what I can do is just have a look at the settings that I've got on the camera at the moment. Now I've previously set this up so that I can capture an image in here just using the house lights for illumination. So I have full manual control over the camera. I've got a shutter speed set of 1/30th of a second, ISO of 1600 and an aperture set of 5.6. Now the sensitivity, the ISO, might seem a little high, and I've done that on purpose so that I can use the house lights in here effectively for illumination. Okay, so the next thing to do would just be to focus up the camera. So just looking down the viewfinder, I'll just get a rough focus, something like that. There we are, and with that I'll just grab an image. And there we are, that's our test image, and you can see that the exposure is about right and the composition is more or less as I expected. It's not really very inclusive, and that's because there's quite a distance between the actual camera and the subject. Now what I want to try and do is get this a lot closer. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is actually change this lens for something a lot wider. There we are. So this is a 28mm lens. So again, in full format terms, that would be something like a 16mm lens. So it is very wide. Okay, so with that change made, let's just grab another image and we'll see what it looks like now. So you can see in this image that it is considerably wider. So this is what we had before, and this is what I've got now. So in order to make this the same scale as this, what I can do is actually move the camera considerably closer to the subject. So let's just do that. There we are. So you can see now that this is a lot closer than it was before. Okay, so just with that set, let's have another go and see what it looks like now. There, and that's a much better composition, I think. So this was with the 80mm lens, and this is with the 28mm lens. So that would be 50mm on a full format, and 16mm on a full format. So you can see it really is very wide, but it gives that inclusion because I've been able to get the camera so much closer than it was before. Okay, so the next thing to do would be to actually take control of the lighting. Now I want to light this with Studio Flash, so in order to give me control I need to cut out all of the available light which I've just used. So I can reset these parameters to do that. So I'll take the ISO down to 100 and the shutter speed to the flash sync speed for this camera, which is 1/125th of a second. So those two changes is a difference of about 6 stops. So that should make this considerably darker. Let's just grab that and see what it looks like now. There we are. And you can still see a bit of a ghost of an image, but nothing to be concerned about, I think. Okay, so now any light which I add from flash will be the only light which actually affects the subject. There we are. So that's what I'm going to be using for my lighting. This is a 500 joule battery-powered studio flash, and on the front of this I have a 3-foot octabox. Now the whole thing is on this C-stand, and I've placed it so that it will side light all of the subject. Okay, so just at an arbitrary energy level, let's grab an image and see what we get. Okay, so you can see from this that the exposure is probably down by a couple of stops. So what I can do is add 2 stops of energy to this light, and I can do that through the flash sync trigger, which on this camera is built in. So I'll just select that flash and just add 2 stops. There we go. And now I can just grab that again. We'll see what the exposure looks like this time. Yes, that's a bit better, isn't it? So that's brought the whole thing up quite a lot. This is what we had before, and this is what I've got now. So I'll just zoom into 1:1, and we'll check the focus. You can see that on this chain here, the focus is looking pretty good. We'll have a look at the other one. Yeah, it's just starting to drift out. You can more or less see that it's focused on in between the chains, really. So I think that's an ideal place for it. Okay. So compositionally, I think this is actually missing a few things. I want something in the background here just to give a point of interest. So what I'm going to do is add a couple of bottles. Just going to place one just on the table at the back, and this one I've got in this adjustable height stand, so I can just place it at the back here, and I can just wind the stand up and down just to make sure that I don't actually see this support. I don't want to see that, I just want to see the bottle. There we are. And I've put them this far back so that I end up with a difference in focus from the focus point, which will be about here where the chains are. Right back here should be well out of focus. Okay, so with that all done, let's just grab it again. Yes, that's starting to come together, I think. So now you can see what I meant about these 2 bottles in the background. The whole thing is now building up across here, and we have a leading line from the edge of the box here and another one from the book. So compositionally, that's not too bad at all. But I think as far as the overall lighting is concerned, it's not brilliant. What we could do, just to make it a little more interesting, would be to move this light. So now I've moved it into this overhead position, and really I think it's probably a little close, but we'll give it a go and see what happens. So just at all the same energy levels, I'll grab that and we'll see what we get. And straight away you can see that because it's a lot closer, due to the inverse square law, it's rather overexposed. So what I'm going to do is just move it slightly further away and probably take half a stop off as well. So I'll just start by moving it further away. And just using the flash sync trigger, I'll take that half stop off. There we are. And I'll just grab that again. Yes, that's a bit more controlled. And with the light being up in the air here, I've got a very nice, I think, highlight on the bottles here. I've got a sheen on the top of the book. The whole thing is looking considerably better than we had with the other position. So this was the other position, and this is what we've got now. It's a personal preference really, but I think this one is better. Okay. So with that now captured, what I'm going to do is go into Photoshop and do the bare minimum of post-production. So just before I go into Photoshop, I'm still in Capture One at the moment. I'm just going to use the adjustment tools here just to make two versions of the same image. So this is straight out of the camera, and what I'm going to do is just change the clarity and structure here so that I end up with a more dreamy effect. So I'm just going to take the clarity all the way down and the structure, and as far as the dehaze, I'm just going to add a little of that just to bring some contrast into the top of the book. There we are, something like that. So I will export that one, and with that exported, I'll just reset all these parameters and just export a camera original as well. So here we are in Photoshop, and I've loaded up the two files that I exported earlier. So this one is the camera original, and this one is the one which has some pre-processing on it. And you can see that there is a little bit of difference, especially in this area down here. So if I just zoom into that corner, and now have a look at the other one as well, you can see the difference. Okay, so my next job would be to make a stack of these two images. So I can go on to File here, come down to Scripts, and just ask it to load files into stack. Ask it to add the open files and just click on OK. So now I have this new file which has both of those images on separate layers. So I can just turn one on and off, and you can see the other one underneath. OK, so I don't need the camera originals anymore. I can just shut those down. I've always got those to go back to. This is the one which I'll be editing. Right, so the first job would just be to reorder these. So I'll just grab the one that's at the back and put it at the front, like so. And this one's slightly darker anyway, which is the one which I want at the front. So just to make that a little more dark, I'm just going to add an adjustment layer. And I'm going to add a levels adjustment. Just make that a little darker still. Something like that. I'll just alter the contrast. There. Jolly good. Now currently that's affecting the whole image, but what I can do is use this mask here to selectively apply this adjustment. So wherever I paint on this mask in black will bring through the original image. So I'll just make sure black is selected as the foreground color. Find a paintbrush. I've got a fairly large, very soft paintbrush, and what I can do is just take that off the top of the book. I just want that effect really on the wood at the front. So I'll take it off everything else. There we are. Now currently this adjustment is affecting every layer underneath it, and I only want it to affect this top one. So what I can do is just click on this little icon here, and that will pin it to just this layer. So it won't affect the one underneath at all. Okay, so the next step would be just to add a mask to this layer. So I'll just click on the mask icon, and again, wherever I paint on this in black will reveal the one that's underneath it. So I want to bring through parts of the image. So I'll start on the feather, and we'll just bring this back like so. There we are. So all this part of the image at the bottom here I've left alone. So if I now just take these off, you'll be able to see the effect. So that is the adjustment, and that is the post-processed image. Okay, so finally I'll just go for a crop. Now I'm going to use this for video, so I'm going to use a specific ratio. So using the ratio drop down here, I'll go to 16:9. There we are. And there we have it. So by selecting a wide-angle lens, I've been able to move the camera position much closer to the subject, which has resulted in a much more inclusive composition. And together with some overhead lighting to emphasize the shape of the out of focus bottles in the background, etc., I've ended up with an image which I think is rather good. Okay, well, I hope you liked watching how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching.